Greetings, Mantare79 here, and I'm back with another deck profile video for the Cardfight Vanguard trading card game. In today's video, the deck profile I'm going to be doing one for is G standard formats, Kageros, Dragonic Overlord the Legend with Spherical Lord Dragon. Alrighty then, let's get started. First off, the main deck. For the main deck, let's begin with the starting unit. For the starting unit of this deck, we have the Grade 0, Lizard Soldier Conroe. Starting unit, Grade 0, Lizard Soldier Conroe. By my opinion, he's the best starting unit to have in the Kagero clan's G standard and premium formats, for his skills are: the first skill, when ridden on top of by another Kagero unit, you may move Conroe from your soul to the rear guard, and the second skill of Conroe, as a rear guard, by counterblasting one and retreating Conroe from your own rear guard, you may search your deck for any grade 1 or less Kagero card and add it straight to your hand. So ideally, this second skill, which makes Conroe one of the best starting units, is you can use it to search your deck for any grade 1 or less Kagero. For example, a perfect guard, heal trigger to use for generation guard cost, stride fodder, or any other grade 1 or less cards you wish to use for your main strategies for the Kagero decks. And with that, you just about covered the starting unit. So next, let's get on to the grade 1 lineup. And now here we are with the grade 1 lineup. For the grade 1s in this deck, we have 4 Lizard Soldier Conroes, 3 Spear of the Flame Dragon, Tar, 2 Doombringer High Flames, and 4 Protect Orb Dragons. The grade 1, Lizard General Conroe, by my opinion, one of the best support cards for Kagero clan's Dragonic Overlord series, G standard and premium formats, for his skills are: the first skill, when called onto the rearguard circle, you may reveal a grade 3 from your hand. If you've done so, you may search your deck for any grade 3 of the name Overlord and add it to your hand. If a card was added to your hand by this unit's skill, discard one card from your hand as a cost. So for this first skill, ideally it will help you secure a specific Dragonic Overlord you wish to ride as your grade 3 Vanguard, or to have a grade 3 stride fodder ready in your hand for later, or for any other purposes you wish to have an extra grade 3 in your hand. And the second skill of Lizard General Conroe, which is the best one, as a rear guard, by retreating Conroe from your own rear guard, you may give your Vanguard Overlord a skill. The skill is, whenever your Vanguard attacks, you may countercharge 2. So this second skill will also let you have a secured way to refund counterblast you wish to use for later skills. The grade 1, Spear of the Flame Dragon, Tar. His skill is, as a rear guard, once per turn, Generation Break 1, by paying a cost of Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1, you may give one unit on your field plus 4,000 power and a skill. The skill is, as a Vanguard or a rear guard, when attacking, you may check the top 5 cards of your deck for a grade 3 or above Flame Dragon and add it to your hand. Ideally, this skill is to help you secure yourself grade 3s, Flame Dragons like Dragonic Overlord you wish to have in your hand for later in the turn, like for stride cost or for any other skills that require you to have a grade 3 Flame Dragon in your hand. These grade 1, Doombringer High Flame. His skills are: the first skill, when called onto the rear guard circle, you may choose up to 2 grade 3 with the name Overlord from your drop zone and return them to your bottom of your deck. If you've done so, you get to activate abilities according to the number of Overlords you sent to your deck. If 1 or more cards were returned to your deck by this skill, you may shuffle your deck. And if 2 or more cards were returned, you may draw 1 card after shuffling. So this first skill is a good way to restock your deck slightly with extra grade 3 Overlords, or to let you draw an extra card you wish to have in your hand, increasing your hand size slightly, but still helpful. and the second skill of Doombringer High Flame. At the beginning of your ride phase, you may retreat High Flame from your rear guard. If you've done so, during the turn this skill was activated, when you wish to stride a G unit with the name Overlord, you won't have to pay any cost from your hand. So as for the second skill, it's more or less a stride fodder for the Dragonic Overlord series, which is good to have since you can still use him as a rear guard early in the game and then retreat him to stride with later in your later turns. The Great One, Protect Orb Dragon, Sentinel, Perfect Guard. Like any other Perfect Guard in the Cardfight Vanguard trading card game, it features the same skill and effect and activation. When used to guard with, you may discard one card from your hand. If the cost has been paid, you may block one enemy attack. But he also has an additional ability for the G standard Perfect Guards, which is, after guarding, if you have another copy of Protect Orb Dragon in your drop zone, you may countercharge one. So not only is Protect Orb a great card for defense, he's also a good way to refund your Counterblast to use for later skills in the game. And with that, we've just about covered the deck's Great 1 lineup. Next, let's go to the Great 2 lineup. And now for the Grade 2 lineup. For the Grade 2s in this deck, we have 4 Emperor Dragon Knight Nihalims, 4 Berserk Lord Dragons, and 3 Perdition Dragon, Dragonic Neoflame. The Grade 2 Emperor Dragon Knight Nihalim. His skill is, as a rearguard, Generation Break 1. During your turn, if your Vanguard is an Overlord, Nihalim gets plus 2,000 power and a skill. The skill is, as a rearguard, whenever your Grade 4 Vanguard attacks, Nihalim gets plus 5,000 power till the end of turn. So, with this skill, Nihalim makes a great front row rearguard for your Dragonic Overlord decks, since as long as your Vanguard is already an Overlord, Nihalim will get a continuous plus 2,000 power of his own skill, and the additional skill is, whenever you attack with a Grade 4 Vanguard, you can give plus 5,000 power to Nihalim, which is a good skill since it's stackable, since Dragonic Overlord specializes in attacking multiple times with your Vanguard. So as long as you have a Vanguard that's Grade 4 or higher and has a skill that lets you restand after attacking, it's possible to stack the 5,000 power boost every time your Vanguard attacks. Overall, making Emperor Dragonite Nihalim a good front row rear guard to have for your Dragonic Overlord decks, G standard format. The Grade 2 Berserk Lord Dragon. His skill is, as a rearguard, Generation Break 1. Whenever your Grade 4 Vanguard attacks, you may Counterblast 1. If the cost has been paid, you can retire one of your opponent's Grade 2 or less rearguards. So, just like with Emperor Dragonite Nihalim, this unit skill works well with Dragonic Overlords, that especially if you've got a Grade 4 or higher Vanguard, since as long as you can attack multiple times with your Vanguard and pay the Counterblast 1 multiple times, it's possible to clear out your opponent's field of Grade 2 or less rear guards, making him a good rear guard to have on your front row or back row if you wish to clear out your opponent's field. The Grade 2 Perdition Dragon, Dragonic Neoflame. His skill is, on the turn Dragonic Neoflame was called onto your rear guard, he gets a skill. During that turn, whenever your opponent's rear guard on the same column as Dragonic Neoflame is retired, you may Counterblast 1 and retire another rear guard in the same column. So Dragonic Neoflame's skill is more or less a good way to wipe out opponent's rear guards in the same column as Neoflame. So long as you've retired a rear guard in the same column, you can retire the remaining one in the same column using Dragonic Neoflame's skill. So just like with Berserk Lord Dragon, Neoflame is a good card to have to clear out your opponent's field. And with that, we've just about covered the deck's Grade 2 lineup. Next, let's go to the Grade 3 lineup. And now for the Grade 3 lineup. For the Grade 3s in this deck, we have 4 Dragonic Overlord the Legends, 3 Perdition Emperor Dragon, Dragonic Overlord the Great, and 2 Spherical Lord Dragon. The Grade 3 Dragonic Overlord the Legend, the main Grade 3 to ride in this deck. His skills are: the first skill, as a Vanguard, once per turn, Generation Break 2, by paying the cost of counterblasting 1 and discarding a grade 3 or above Flame Dragon from your hand. If the cost has been paid during your turn, Dragonic Overlord the Legend gets plus 15,000 power, plus 1 grade, plus 1 drive, and a skill. The skill is, as a Vanguard, once per turn, after attacking an opponent's rear guard, you may discard 3 cards from your hand. If this cost has been paid, you may stand your Vanguard Dragonic Overlord the Legend. So as for this first skill, it's a pretty good restanding skill for the Dragonic Overlord series, since by merely discarding 1 grade 3 or higher Flame Dragon from your hand, you can turn your grade 3 Dragonic Overlord the Legend into a grade 4 with 26,000 power, plus 1 drive, and a restanding skill. So it's more or less a substitute for if you do not wish to stride a G unit, but instead to use Dragonic Overlord the Legend as a grade 4 Vanguard instead. And the second skill of Dragonic Overlord the Legend, when ridden by counterblasting 1 and soul blasting 1, if the cost has been paid, you may check the top 5 cards of your deck for a Flame Dragon Race card. If the Flame Dragon Race was revealed in the check, you may add 1 to your hand. So as for this second skill, it's a good way to secure yourself a Flame Dragon you wish to have in your hand for when you wish to use Dragonic Overlord the Legend's first skill, perhaps if you want to discard a grade 3 Flame Dragon, or to have a perfect guard or any other Flame Dragons that you wish to use for your main playstyle of this deck. The Perdition Emperor Dragon, Dragonic Overlord the Great, grade 3. His first skill is Legion. For those of you who kept up with the Cardfight Vanguard trading card game since the original series, you should know what Legion is. When both players' Vanguards are grade 3 or above, by returning up to 4 cards from your drop zone to your deck, you may search your deck for your Vanguard's intended Legion mate and Legion it to your Vanguard. For Dragonic Overlord the Great, his Legion mate is Dragonic Neoflame. And the second skill of Dragonic Overlord the Great, after attacking an opponent's rear guard, if your Vanguard is in Legion, you may pay the cost of Counterblast 1 and discard 2. If the cost has been paid, you may stand your Vanguard. And the third skill of Dragonic Overlord the Great, whenever your Vanguard Dragonic Overlord the Great's attack hits, you may choose to retreat a rear guard with the same name as your Vanguard, perhaps Dragonic Overlord the Great or Dragonic Neoflame. By doing so, you may retire one of your opponent's rear guards. The grade 3 Spherical Lord Dragon. His skills are: the first skill, Rear Guard, Generation Break 1. Whenever your grade 4 Vanguard with the name Overlord attacks, you may give plus 5,000 power. So as for this first skill, it's more or less the same as Emperor Dragonite Harlem, a front row attacker for the Overlord series, particularly grade 4s. And the second skill of Spherical Lord Dragon, when placed on the Vanguard circle by counterblasting 2, you may search your deck for an Overlord and superior ride it on top of Spherical Lord Dragon. If you've successfully ridden a Dragonic Overlord on top of Spherical Lord Dragon by its own skill, you may move Spherical Lord from your rear guard from the soul to the rear guard. So as for the second skill, by paying the cost of counterblasting 2, you may superior ride a Dragonic Overlord of your choice in your deck, and then superior call Spherical Lord Dragon from your soul to the rear guard to have him serve as a frontline attacker with his first skill. And with that, we just about covered the deck's grade 3 lineup. Next, let's go to the trigger lineup. And now for the trigger lineup. For the triggers in this deck, we have 4 Dragon Dancer Palomas, critical triggers. 2 Dragon Dancer Tiklas, critical triggers. 2 Fire Chase Dragons, critical triggers. 2 Steel Dragon Art Peaks, draw triggers. 2 Gatling Claw Dragons, draw triggers. And 4 Dragon Dancer Taras, heal triggers. The grade 0 Dragon Dancer Paloma, critical trigger. Her skill is, when discarded from your hand for a stride cost, she is treated as a grade 3 at that time. So as for this skill, Paloma is more or less a stride fodder for the Kagero clan, which is a substitute for most grade 1 stride fodders. If you prefer to play more grade 1s that focus on being on the rear guard than being from your hand, making Paloma a good way to use for stride fodder costs if you wish to preserve normal units in your hand. D grade 0, critical trigger, Dragon Dancer Tikla. Her skill is, as a rear guard, Generation Break 1. When your Vanguard attacks, you may move Tikla from your rear guard to your soul. If you've done so, you may give your Vanguard plus 10,000 power till the end of the battle and you draw 1 card. D grade 0, Fire Chase Dragon, critical trigger. His skill is, as a rear guard, Generation Break 1. During your turn, whenever an opponent's rear guard was retired while being on the same column as Fire Chase Dragon, you may activate the skill, which is Retreat Fire Chase from your own rear guard. If you've paid this cost, you may retire another rear guard from your opponent's rear guard that is in the same column as Fire Chase Dragon. So basically, Fire Chase Dragon is more or less like Dragonic Neoflame, another card you can use to wipe out rear guards in the same column as your Fire Chase Dragon. D grade 0, Seal Dragon Art Peak, draw trigger. His skill is, as a rear guard, you can move him from your rear guard to the soul. If you've done so, 1 Kagero unit on your field gets plus 3,000 power. So basically, Art Peak is a good way to restock your Vanguard soul and to give a unit on your field, like a Vanguard or a rear guard, a little extra power. D grade 0, Gatling Claw Dragon, draw trigger. His skill is, as a rear guard, by counterblasting 1 and moving Gatling Claw from your rear guard to the soul. If the cost has been paid, you may retire 1 of your opponent's grade 0 rear guards. So like Art Peak is a good way to restock your soul, but also his own skill lets you retire grade 0s in your opponent's field, like perhaps their starting unit or any other grade 0s they mainly use in their strategy. The grade 0, Dragon Dancer Tara, heal trigger. Her skill is, when used to pay for the cost of a Generation Guard, after the G Guardian is finished guarding, you may choose to remove from play the Tara used to pay for the cost and another Dragon Dancer Tara from your drop zone. If the skill has been played, you may choose to either countercharge 1 or soul charge 1. So if you don't mind the idea of removing heal triggers from the game, you can use her to refund counterblast or to stack up soul charges. And with that, we just about covered the deck's trigger lineup. For the trigger line of this deck, we have 8 critical triggers, 4 draw triggers, and 4 heal triggers. And we've also just about finished explaining every card in the main deck. So next, let's get on to the G zone. And now here we are with the G zone. For the G zone, let's first start with the G units. For the G units in this deck, we have 2 Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Dragonic Overlord the Purge. 2 Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Dragonic Overlord the Ace. 2 Flare General, Dumjit Valor. 4 Flare Arms, Ziegenberg. 1 Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Zambus Dragon, and 1 Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Ascendglaive Dragon. The Grade 4 G unit, Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Dragonic Overlord to Purge. His skills are, the first skill, once per turn, by flipping 1 card in your G zone face up and sending an Overlord from your hand to the soul, you may deal 1 damage to your opponent if they're at 4 or less damage, and the damage caused by this unit's skill cannot use any trigger effects. And the second skill, Generation Break 3. During this Vanguard's attack, your Vanguard's drive check becomes the same number of cards as your opponent's damage zone. So Dragonic Overlord the Purge is a good card to increase your opponent's damage before attacking, and also if you've managed to push your opponent to 5 damage by the time you make this unit's attack, and if you've manage to unlock Generation Break 3, you'll have a Quintet Drive, which is drive checking 5 cards and increasing your chances of getting a trigger or to simply restock your hand of more cards. Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Dragonic Overlord the Ace, G unit, grade 4. His skill is, as a Vanguard, by counterblasting 2 and flipping 1 the Ace from your G zone face up, the Vanguard minuses 1 drive and gets a skill. The skill is, once per turn, after attacking, by discarding 1 card from your hand and 1 Overlord from your hand, you may stand your Vanguard the Ace and it gets plus 5,000 power. So this is pretty much a standard restanding skill for the Dragonic Overlords, since the Ace, the skill simply asks you to counterblast 2 and discard a card and an Overlord from your hand. You can restand the Ace with an extra 5,000 power for his second attack. Grade 4, G unit, Flare General, Dumjit Valor. His skills are, the first skill, Blaze. For those of you who kept up with the Cardfight Vanguard trading card game since the G standard era, you should know what Blaze is. Whenever a unit on your field attacks, if you have more rear guards than your opponent, your Vanguard enters the blazing state. Then the second skill of Flare General, Dumjit Valor. By counterblasting 1 and flipping 1 card in your G zone face up, your Vanguard, Dumjit Valor, gets plus 15,000 power for every Sentinel in your drop zone. So ideally, if you've managed to acquire a bunch of perfect guards or quintet walls or any other kind of sentinels in your drop zone and stack those in your drop zone, you'll be able to stack 15,000 power or more to your Vanguard continuously. And then the third skill of Dumjit Valor. Once per turn, while this Vanguard is in the blazing state, if your opponent has used a Sentinel or G Guardian during the turn this unit attacked, you may restand your Vanguard and it gets -1 drive. So this third skill is a good restanding ability that more or less takes advantage of the fact that if your opponent uses a G Guardian or a Sentinel to guard with, you can restand your Vanguard without having to pay any cost. So despite the requirements needed to activate this third skill, it's still a pretty powerful G unit to use. The grade 4, G unit, Flare Arms, Ziegenberg. His skills are, the first skill, Blaze. Since I've already explained the Blaze ability for Dumjit Valor, I won't have to explain it again, so let's get on to the second skill. The second skill is, as a Vanguard, once per turn, by Soul Blasting 1 and flipping a Ziegenberg from your G zone face up, you may retire one of your opponent's rear guards. And the third skill of Flare Arms Ziegenberg, as a Vanguard, once per turn, Generation Break 3. After this unit attacks, you may counterblast 1 and discard from your hand the same number of cards as your opponent's rear guards. You may restand your Vanguard and -2 drive. So, just like with the Ace and Dumjit Valor, Ziegenberg specializes in restanding, and his cost is actually adjustable since after attacking by counterblasting 1 and discarding the same number of cards as your opponent has rear guards in their field, you can restand your Vanguard. So technically it's possible to reduce the hand discard cost to 0 by reducing your opponent's rear guards to 0. So if you use attacks or skills to wipe out your opponent's field of rear guards, you can have a almost no cost restand for this ability for Ziegenberg. The grade 4, Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Zanbus Dragon. His skill is, as a Vanguard, once per turn, by flipping 1 card in your G zone face up, you can retire all of your opponent's rear guards, and then all grade 3 or higher units on your front row get plus 10,000 power till the end of the turn. So Zanbus Dragon, he's a good unit to have if you wish to clear all of your opponent's rear guards in a single strike and to give all of your grade 3 or higher units in the front row, like your Vanguard Zanbus Dragon, or grade 3s like the Spherical Lord Dragon, an extra 10,000 power for attacking. The grade 4, G unit, Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Ascend Grave Dragon. The first skill, Blaze. Again, since I've already explained Blaze with Dumjit Valor and like with Ziegenberg, I'm going to skip over the first skill. So let's go on to the second skill. Once per turn, by counterblasting 1 and flipping 1 card in your G zone face up, your Vanguard Ascend Glaive gets a skill. The skill is, when your Vanguard attacks, if it's in the blazing state, you may retire one of your opponent's rear guards and draw a card. So a pretty basic ability, but pretty powerful as well, since Ascend Grave Dragon lets you retire an opponent's rear guard and draw an extra card along with your retiring. So it's a good first G unit to stride if you aren't able to stride something like the Purge without the proper hand cost. So it's a good card to have for your first G unit to stride with. And with that, we've just about covered the deck's G units. Next, let's go to the G Guardians. And now for the G Guardians. For the G Guardians of this deck, we have 1. Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, defeat Flare Dragon. 2. Flamewing Steel Beast, Denial Griffin. And 1. Divine Dragon Knight, Absalam. The Grade 4, G Guardian, Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, defeat Flare Dragon. A G Guardian meant to be used for the Overlord series. His skill is, when used to guard with, if your Vanguard is an Overlord, and if it is attacked by your opponent's Vanguard, you may pay a cost of Counterblast 1 and returning up to 2 Grade 3 or greater Flame Dragons from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck. If the cost has been paid, you may retire all rear guards in your opponent's back row. So ideally, this G Guardian is meant to be used for your Overlord Vanguard when it's attacked by another opponent's Vanguard. If you pay the cost of 1 Counterblast and sending 2 Grade 3 Flame Dragons from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck, you can retire your opponent's entire back row, which is a good way to either you wish to clear out your opponent's field of rear guards, or to perhaps weaken your opponent's remaining attacks from their front row rear guards by robbing them of their boosters in the back row, or perhaps even restocking your deck with Grade 3s, Flame Dragons like Overlords. The Grade 4, G Guardian, Flamewing Steel Beast, Denial Griffin. His skill is, when used to guard against an opponent's rear guard attack, you may pay a cost of Counterblast 1. By doing so, you may retire the attacking rear guard. So with this skill, Denial Griffin is more or less like a pseudo-perfect guard against opponent's rear guard attacks, which is pretty powerful by my personal experience. And now the Grade 4, G Guardian, Divine Dragon Knight, Absalam. His skill is, when used to guard against an attack from your opponent's Vanguard to your Vanguard, you may pay a Counterblast of 1. If the cost has been paid, Absalam gets 10,000 shield for every open rearguard circle in your opponent's field. So this is a good G Guardian as well on its own, since if your deck style is to wipe out opponent's rearguards, this G Guardian is a good fit for it, since he gets plus 10,000 shield for every empty rearguard circle. So he's a good singular guard for G standard and premium formats. And with that, we just about covered the deck's G Guardian lineup, as well as the G Zone. And so with that, I've just about covered everything about this deck, from the deck build, card skills, and playstyle. And with that, that's just about all the time we have for today. First off, I want to say thank you to the viewers for watching this video, and to stay tuned for more videos I plan to upload again in the near future. I also hope you all show your support by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to my videos and channel. And with that, I say goodbye and see you all soon.